There was something quite strange with the SQL, and I'm going to tell you what this bug is. It's something that changed with Drupal 7 now. Now, if I have this SQL, so it's the same as before, I just changed C1 to R and C2 to S to make it a little bit more readable. But the thing is, if I push on go, it seems like nothing changed. But look on top, there's a testing D7, which is our database. And now it says S, which he creates actually a new table. This is because the comment over here is actually known syntax for SQL. I'll show you. If you go to comments and then browse, you see on top here, select everything from comments and it's green, right? Now, if I edit it, the line quotes over here are used to identify the table over here, or like what we'll later see, fields. And mostly I just remove them because, I mean, you don't really need them if you don't use white spaces in your table names, and who uses white spaces in their table names. But in this case, you need it because comment is known syntax. So if you want to have a table called select, it's better to put it in this line quotes because select is already a known syntax. So I'll remove it, and you will see that instead of green, it is now purple, meaning that SQL recognize it. Like if I would do select everything from users is not a syntax, and then you see that it's green when it's a string or when you use a line quotes, and it's just gray if you don't use anything. So now you know that comment is actually SQL syntax. So the way to make sure that that doesn't happen is to put the line quotes over there. Line. And if I now run it, I'll save it, run it, we have sender and receiver, and that was the query we were trying to do. So the only difference were those line quotes don't mix them with normal quotes, which look like this. Normal quotes are used for strings. This is not a string, right? This is a table name. And also for fields, they will use line quotes. I'll show you right away. I'm gonna use this query, put it away for a while, just for a second. So I'm gonna remove that later on, but I want to make sure that I don't need to type it again. So I'll just put it over here. The next thing we want to do is we actually want to populate our user interaction table. So as a kind of a small tip of finding a quick way to get to some SQL syntax is that you just use the editor of PHP and you insert something. Let's say 1 goes to 1 and tries it 5 times. And what you see is over here the SQL to insert one field. Okay, so again you see the line quotes into the field names, right? Also for the table, oh that's a table, and also for the database. That's where they use line quotes. While straight quotes like here, that's strings. Be careful to notice the difference. Okay, I'm gonna copy this and I'm also gonna put that on top. Now I don't need to have the database all the time, it's gonna be the same, and I'm gonna remove the line quotes over there. And also in the fields, you cannot, there's no mistake possible over here. Oh, that's a mistake. So this is how you normally see it in the code too. There's no line quotes. And then you have the values, right? So it's insert into the table name. You tell them which field, sender, receiver, and count. And then you have values, in this case just 1, 2, and 5, right? Now our case is more special. You could actually write it in PHP and get the other table, so get this table and then insert it manually in PHP. But I'm going to show you how to do that with pure MySQL. Therefore, you need to best search for insert. Oh, insert into, select let's do a from tool, and not sure if that makes any difference. Okay, so I'll see over here the def mysql com insert select. This is going to be the manual of MySQL, showing you the syntax for using an insert with a select. So we're going to insert something by taking a whole database. Now, how do you read this? Because I know that the first time this is very strange. When it's between straight brackets, it's optional. You can use it, you don't need to use it. When it's without brackets, you need to use it. So you at least need an insert. You don't need low priority, high priority, or ignore. You don't need the into, but we're going to use that anyway, right? Because what you're inserting otherwise. If you use into, you need the table name. You can have column names and other stuff, but that's not needed. And we have the select. So I'm gonna change the code on top here to have it in line with this. So we're gonna do an insert into user interactions, right? That's this. Then we have the sender, receiver, and count. So that's the same. We don't have the values, right? We have a select. So we'll just remove the values over here and we replace it with our select. Then we have our select, blah, 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 blah. And then on the last thing you see also something like on duplicated key update, which means that if you have a primary key, which we have a key down here, and the sender and receiver is already seen, which in our case will happen, you can actually have an error saying that they are duplicated key. Maybe before we do that, let's just see and generate the bug. So I'll keep this sender receiver. One thing I need to change is, you see the select over here, it has a sender and it has a receiver, while I'm actually expecting sender ID, receiver ID, and count. So I'll just add a default next to it called 1. So all the time it will put 1 in there. So if I just copy this, this will actually give me a mistake because of the duplicated key. Let's try that. I expect a bug. Duplicated entry 620. So 620 is the first entry that comes again. So what we actually want is, we want to, when you enter any of those, the count needs to be count plus 1, right? Don't forget to, the user table now has values, I guess, right? Oh, only 1. Okay, that's not a problem. I'm gonna empty it, okay, so that there's nothing in it. That's good. So we need the on duplicated key. So this part, on duplicated key. On duplicated key, we're gonna update count. So instead of an insert, we are doing an update. We're saying that count is gonna be equal to count plus 1. That's it. And if you run this SQL, you see it has affected 364 rows. Let's browse them. Here they are. And if you select on count, the other way around, you see that from 14 to 14, so that's to himself, there are actually 3, that's counted 3 times, right? So that's our first part. So this is the part where a comment replies to a comment. So if I go to my local host, just like this, what we have now is all the comments that are on a comment. But this comment is actually a reply to this node. So we don't have those. So we don't have the relation between the comments and the nodes. Therefore, we need another SQL. So it's going to be almost the same as this one. But the difference is, we don't want to select this from users into comments. Let's just go back to the database over here. So we don't want this version now, right? What we want now is where the comment replies to the node, and therefore I'm gonna get back to browse the comments and show you that there's, so what you see is there's always a node ID. Even if there's parent ID or no parent ID, there's always a node ID. But if there's no node ID, if there's no parent ID, so if parent ID is equal to 0, then you know that this comment actually refers to this node. So what we can do is we can go to the node table and get the user ID over there. So that's exactly what I'm gonna try now. First we're gonna do just the select part. So we still have sender and receiver. We can still have the sender is still from the comments, but the receiver is now from node. And what we have is that sender comment ID, no, node ID, sorry, is equal to receiver node ID because there's no comment ID, and the parent ID needs to be 0. Because if it's not 0, you are counting all of them, right? So let's do that. See if it works. There you go, right? So that's another part. So we're gonna just replace the select over here with the other select. There you go. And that's our second select. So actually we need twice this insert into. So I'm gonna run this now. Structure. There we go. So there are 458 columns added, and oh no, user interaction, rows, and probably there will be a lot more counts now. So hop, 5, not so many more. So, but this is actually how we populate our table. So this SQL, I know it's quite complicated, but it's the hardest part of the exercise. So I'm gonna stop here and then go back to our PHP that you don't mean for other cases you don't really need so complicated SQLs. So back to PHP in next screencast.